So, welcome to a very special episode of our podcast. We dive today into evolving landscape of multiple sclerosis treatment with a focus on generics and biosimilars. Today, we have an incredible honor of hosting Lucy Wessels, a pharmacist who's not just a cornerstone in the MS treatment community, but also full of knowledge and support for many, including myself. Lucy's day-to-day dedication to understand and navigate the complexities of MS treatments makes her an indispensable resource for anyone dealing with this condition. In today's episode titled Shaping the Future of MS Treatment, the role of generics and biosimilars, we will unpack the critical role these treatments play, address common concerns, and look towards the future of MS care. Lucy, welcome and thank you for joining us and sharing your experience.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. So maybe first of all, many of the patients or people with MS who are listening to this episode may not be very familiar of the generics and biosimilars. So if you could just take me through and provide a little bit overview of the generics and biosimilars. What are these treatments? What's the role of these treatments in MS?
Sure. So when a drug manufacturer launches a new drug, it's initially protected with a patent. So this means legally, this company is the only company that's able to make and sell the drug. But after a number of years, the manufacturer loses patent exclusivity, and other drug companies are then able to develop, manufacture, and bring to market their own version of the original drug. And this is what's known as generic or biosimilar medicines. So I guess, the advantage of generics and biosimilars is that they're just as safe and effective as the original brand, but are significantly lower cost. So focusing on MS specifically, we've got the disease-modifying therapies or DMTs, and up until now, they've only been available as branded products. But there are several DMTs where the patent is now expiring or has already expired, and other manufacturers are now launching the generic or biosimilar versions of these medicines. So some examples include fingolimod, teriflunomide, dimethyl fumarate, and natalizumab. So I think generics and biosimilars, although it's new in the field of MS treatment, I think it's reassuring to know that these drugs have been in routine use for many years for other conditions. So, for example, biosimilars have been used routinely for cancer, arthritis, psoriasis, inflammatory bowel disease, just to give a few examples. And generic drugs are the default treatment for various common conditions, for example, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, and so on.
Okay, that's really very interesting. Lucy, I think it's important to know that these medicines, they've been around for a long period of time. And I just want to understand a little bit better, what's the difference between the generics and biosimilars? Is it more to do with the infusion or tablet form of the medication? What is the definition? What's the difference between these two?
Yeah, that's a good question. So maybe if we talk about generics first. So this is where the original branded medicine is a chemical medicine. So this means it's made using a simple chemical process, and the drug normally has a relatively small, simple molecular structure. So if you remember from your chemistry, the molecules are the building blocks of different substances. So for MS, examples of DMTs that are chemical medicines include dimethyl fumarate, fingolimod, and teriflunomide. Quite often these medicines are taken orally, so they include tablets and capsules, but there are other routes of administration for these drugs as well. So some are given by injection or other routes. So generics is where, like we said, the patent has expired of the original brand, and other companies then make a copy of the drug. So because the drug molecule is chemically synthesized, they can use the exact same chemical process to produce the generic, and the result is an exact copy of the branded drug molecule. So there might be small differences, or there might be some differences in other non-active ingredients, or what we call excipients. And, patients might notice that different generic tablets of the same medicine have a different color or appearance or shape, for example. But the important thing to remember is that the active ingredient, the medicine itself, is 100% the same, identical. So there's no difference in how it works in the body or how safe or effective it is compared to the branded product. So that's generics. Have you got any questions on that, or?
Yeah, just want to reflect that the same active substance that gets into your body and non-active ingredients of the tablets can be slightly different, but it doesn't actually affect you in a negative way. It shouldn't cause more side effects at all, because we are focused on what is an active substance that gets into your body to modify your immune system. And it's exactly a copy of the original one. So that's really good to know. And now moving on to what's the biosimilar then by definition? What is it an infusion, or it's differently made and licensed differently? So what's that?
So moving on to biosimilars, this is where the original branded medicine is a biologic drug. So a biologic drug is where it's made using living cells, such as animal cells, plant cells, bacteria, or yeast. And it involves a really complex manufacturing process. So normally the biologic drug molecule has a much larger, more complex structure than simple chemical medicines. There's quite often some natural variation in the end product, and there may even be variation between different batches made in the same location by the same drug manufacturer. So biologics, they normally need to be given by injection, either intravenously or subcutaneously. And some examples of DMTs include ocrelizumab, ofatumumab, and natalizumab. So what is a biosimilar and where does this all tie in? So when a patent expires of a biologic drug, it means that other companies are able to produce their own version, like we said, and this is what's called a biosimilar medicine. Now, it's called a biosimilar because the active substance is highly similar to the original brand, but it's not 100% identical. There might be minor differences. And this is because it's actually impossible to create an exact copy of a biologic drug because of the nature of what it is, the complex molecular structure and the natural variation that occurs due to the biologic manufacturing process. But it's important to say, in order to get approval, regulatory approval, the manufacturer of the biosimilar has to prove that there's no clinically significant differences in safety, effectiveness, or quality of their product compared to the reference product or the original branded medicine, if you like. Mm-hmm. So these are the three key elements I think that people need to remember when thinking and talking about biosimilars: safety, effectiveness, and quality. There's no significant differences between the biosimilars and the branded. So like with generics, there might also be differences in other non-active ingredients or excipients. And also, if it's, for example, a subcutaneous injection, the pen injection device or the syringe, the device itself might be different and might work slightly differently, might have a different mechanism of action. But overall, essentially, biosimilars and the original branded drug are the same substance. They're the same active substance, the same medicine, given at the same dose, and patients and clinicians shouldn't notice any difference between them in terms of their disease control or side effects. And just to add as well, it's really reassuring, I think, to note that the MHRA, which is the body that regulates medicines in the UK, recently advised that biosimilars and originators can be considered interchangeable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot of sense. And I think the way I look at it, the biosimilar, is as effective as original one, and it's just the way it's made. It's a rigorous process of licensing this drug. There are some clinical trials that biosimilars are being assessed and looked at the safety, efficacy, and quality of this medicine. And also, it needs to match the original one. Otherwise, the biosimilar is never going to be approved, licensed, and used in the clinical space. So we are confident to say that the biosimilars that are developed and licensed to use, currently we're talking about in MS world, Tyruko is biosimilar of the Tysabri or natalizumab treatment. And we know from the rigorous process of licensing that this is the safe biosimilar to use and is as good as natalizumab and Tysabri medicine to use in people with MS. So as Lucy just mentioned, that there are maybe some minor differences because of the complexity of the molecular to build and create and manufacture the biosimilar medicine. But it shouldn't affect and impact on your overall outcome, managing the disease activity, progression, and new MRI scan findings. So from the efficacy, safety, and quality perspective, is as good as your original medicine. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah?
That is right, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we obviously going to have patients who are worried about the potential side effects of the medicine and tolerability. Should we be concerned about the side effects and tolerability? Should we be concerned moving our patients on generic or biosimilar medicine? And what are these sort of side effects to expect and manage them effectively? Any ideas on this?
Yeah, so basically, as we've talked about, the active substance in the original brand and the generic or biosimilar is essentially the same. So the side effect profiles of the active drug are the same in the branded and the generic or biosimilar. So you shouldn't expect any different side effects because of this.
Yeah, it shouldn't cause more toxicity to the liver, kidney function, or cause more opportunistic infections. So it should be exactly the same what is written on the original leaflet. Side effect profile is important. And we always educate our patients about the side effects. Each time we prescribe the medicine, it's important to get into the list of the side effects and to know what to expect side effect-wise. No matter which generic, biosimilar, or original, there are people who are more sensitive than the other, and the side effects do happen, but it's important to monitor that, list that action. And if people originally who were on the disease-modifying therapy or on the original generic or biosimilar medicine, and if they start having more and more side effects, well, we're obviously going to take that into account and monitor it precisely and maybe change back to the original if that's the issue. But theoretically, knowing the rigorous processes of licensing, both of the generic or biosimilar, people shouldn't expect to have more side effects because the difference between these medicine is very, very minor. So in terms of the education for patients about the generics and biosimilar, this is what we're doing. That's the reason why we going live with this episode to educate the community living with MS about the generics and biosimilars. How can healthcare providers improve patient understanding and acceptance of these treatments? It's quite a change because maybe the tablet color is going to change from blue to red or from red to blue. The infusions, probably people won't notice when it's been administered by the nurse, but the tablets might be a bit of a change of shape and the color. How can we best educate our people with MS? Any ideas and strategies, Lucy?
Yes, so I think it's really useful to provide information to patients that explains generics and biosimilars in simple and easy to understand terms. So this might come in a range of formats, so including written information, leaflets, videos, and quite often clinical teams have developed their own materials. Or patients can be signposted to online resources. But I think it's not enough to just provide a patient with a leaflet. I think it's important that we give patients enough opportunity to raise any concerns or queries that they might have, to ask any questions. And so I think it's important that clinicians, nurses, pharmacists, that we all feel equipped to address any concerns or queries that patients might have. I think the ability to reassure patients and the language used is really key to be able to instill confidence in patients and to allay any anxieties they might have, and to just ensure a smooth transition to the new medicine.
Wonderful. I think this is very comprehensive strategy to educate people with MS. I would like to give a bit of a background or maybe analogy of better to understand the generics and the biosimilars. So imagine you were at the favorite coffee shop where you usually order a well-known premium brand coffee. This coffee is your go-to choice because it's consistently delicious and you trust the brand's quality. So in this scenario, the premium brand coffee represents a brand name drug. Now let's talk about the generics. Imagine the coffee shop introduces the promises that the same quality of beans, the same roasting process, the same flavor profile as your premium brand, but it's at a lower price. This house brand is like a generic drug. It's essentially the same product made to match the quality and taste and of the original one, and it's more accessible because it's at lower cost. Moving to the biosimilars that we just discussed, the more complex molecular, usually it's an infusion like natalizumab. So let's consider a slightly different situation. The favorite coffee comes from a specific rare beans that is difficult to duplicate exactly because of the natural variation in growing conditions. A nearby cafe introduces their version of your beloved coffee. They use beans from the same region, grown and roasted using techniques intended to match the flavor profile of your favorite brand as closely as possible. However, because coffee beans have natural variations, the cafe's version is similar but not identical, though it offers a comparable taste experience. This version is like a biosimilar drug. Biosimilars are highly similar to the original biologic drug, as we discussed with Lucy, like your favorite premium coffee, with no meaningful difference in terms of safety, purity, and potency, even though they can't be exact replicas due to the natural variability in the biological materials used in their production. So as you can see that both the house brand coffee generics and the nearby cafe's version biosimilars provide alternatives to your favorite drink, aiming to deliver similar experience and quality at a potentially lower cost, just as generic and biosimilar drugs offer comparable effectiveness and safety to their brand name counterparts in the world of medicine, which may become more accessible medicine in some of the countries, including the UK, and in the countries that are underdeveloped. It's an opportunity for people with MS being managed, being treated, and having a good control and having a preserved brain health. Would you agree with that analogy, Lucy?
Yes, I think that's an excellent analogy. Really good way to explain it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's down to the ground, and I think it might be helpful for people to understand in lay terms. What is it? What exactly it is? And I think education and knowledge is the power these days. The more people know, the better they are going to adhere to the medicine. They will be more confident in taking the generics and biosimilar? Because if you don't know, really, you may just lose the interest and you may lose the trust, because, there is an element of the nocebo effect. And maybe let's talk a little bit about this, Lucy. If you could just explain a little bit, what is it, nocebo effect? What this fancy word means in a simple terms.
So a nocebo effect is the opposite of the placebo effect, if you've heard about that. So this is where you might think that there's going to be more adverse reactions to a medicine if you're worried or concerned about an adverse effect. And this can happen more often when you're changing from, say, one brand to another, or from the branded to a generic or biosimilar. And elevated level of concern may mean increased rate of side effects.
Yeah, so this is very important for people to know. And I'll give you a bit of another example from real life, from our day-to-day life. Imagine you're planning to go to a new restaurant and enjoy a new dish that is known for its exceptional flavors. But before you even take a bite, a friend tells you it might not taste good to you because it's a different taste that you never had this before. Acquired taste, maybe. Despite the dish has been prepared by a chef and containing all the ingredients you usually enjoy, your first bite is overwhelming. You might even notice flavors that seem off, or even though the dish is perfectly crafted. So that's that sort of a preconception and belief may change your experiences. It's not directly an experience due to the actual taste, but because your expectations set by your friend's comment may change that taste. You see the difference? So I think this is important. So exactly when we introduce the new medicine, generics and biosimilars in the world, and if somebody tells something about it, so you already have an opinion which may influence how you're going to respond. Although it's nothing wrong with the medicine, and it hasn't got any more side effects, but it's just that sort of a preconception of possible things in life. You sort of you make a story in your mind, which I think hence our sort of a discussion today, to educate people and get you to know that it's okay. The medicine is safe, is effective, is potent as the original one. So, but it's useful to have that covered during our discussion, I think. Would you agree, Lucy?
Yes, I think it's useful to have that awareness. And again, you've described it very well there, an example of an analogy to describe what this issue is.
Yeah. So I guess the transition should be smooth from original to generic or biosimilar without any major issues, because the medical teams and MS services will ensure the smooth monitoring process. And of course, we will observe as a healthcare providers for any potential side effects anyway. So maybe our observation is going to be heightened a little bit for a period of time until the transition is finished. But that's what our role as a healthcare providers are. And the high cost drug pharmacies are going to be involved too. So any drug related problems, I always go to Lucy and ask for some help. I always come and say, "Oh, Lucy, this happened to me and this happened to this patient. What should we do?" So it's really a collaborative work. Lucy, would you agree? It's like MDT.
Yes, it's like an MDT approach, isn't it? Really, we work together on these issues and topics.
Yeah, because it's important to have that collaborative approach, helping people to feel better, to have fewer side effects, if at all. So looking into the future of MS treatment, are we going to increase use of the generics and biosimilars? What are the ongoing developments in this area should healthcare providers and patients be aware of?
So prescribers should be taking into account what we call cost effectiveness when making decisions about medicines for their patients. So this is where you take into account the cost of a medicine and the evidence of how effective it is. And normally, there are several medicines available to treat a condition, or quite often there are a range of options. So, and that's the case for MS, to be honest. So normally, prescribers should select the lowest cost treatment, but that is suitable for the patient, for that individual patient. So it might be, you can't say that everyone will be suitable for the lowest cost option. There may be very valid reasons why patients need other options. But I'm just saying, as a general principle, that's what should some of the thought process when deciding which medicines a patient should be started on. Over time, it's difficult to say how this might play out, but because of this principle, you may expect to see a growing number of patients treated with one of these lower cost options. If it's suitable for those patients, then it represents a good option.
Yeah, I believe so that, if we have more medicine available to treat patients, so I think it becomes accessible option for majority of people, and in developed and underdeveloped countries. I think, as we know from the extensive research in the world, that people with MS, their outcomes improve if we use the disease-modifying therapy. And if the cost is diminished, we can prescribe wider range of the people. People may have who historically never been treated because they never matched the eligibility criteria. Maybe the government and policymakers will change that eligibility criteria, and more people will have access at the very early stage of the disease, because that's where we see the best results treating people with MS. So I think overall it gives a lot of flexibility. It's an innovative way of managing multiple sclerosis, and I guess more and more treatments will become available in the near future.
Yes, I would agree with what you just said, to be honest. I think it's important to sort of keep an eye on the development of new MS drugs as time goes on. New medicines are being launched all the time, but also to keep an eye on biosimilars and generics that are in the pipeline, so that we can plan for any changes that might be needed.
Yeah, and maybe save some money and use the money into providing better care, having more staff around to look after patients, to monitor patients. So we re-resource the investment into other gaps that are plenty of them at the moment in the current environment, in particularly talking about NHS. So I think it's a very new way, innovative way of providing care if we have a medicine that are more available, cost-wise, and also if the generics and biosimilars are being used and they're as good as the originals, so it's no-brainer not to consider this option at MS Service. So we'll try our best, of course, to discuss that at individual basis, so patient by patient. We're doing this now. Is that correct, Lucy? We're having some schemes in transition from original to generic, and we were successful at our trust. Do you have any comments about this, Lucy?
Yes, that's right. So for MS in particular, we've had generic fingolimod for about a year now, I think. Our current patients were transitioned smoothly to the generic, which has resulted in a significant reduction in cost of drugs for those patients. And then currently we're working on moving patients on dimethyl fumarate, teriflunomide and natalizumab to the generic or biosimilar versions. And I think over the years, we've developed a good method for managing the introduction of these generic and biosimilar options, certainly at our hospital. It's not just MS, so other specialties have been changing to generics and biosimilars, including rheumatology, for example, have been using biosimilars for a number of years, and we've successfully transitioned patients to biosimilars. And I think we've developed a good method and process of managing that and keeping patients informed and smoothing out, it's about sort of trying to plan and anticipate any potential hurdles and trying to make the whole process as smooth as possible for everybody.
And so far, we've built up a great experience and confidence as a healthcare providers in that transition. I'm talking from my point of view. So I really believe that this is the way forward. It's really powerful. We haven't had any significant issues at all in that transition. And I haven't had anybody on fingolimod complaining of having more side effects from it. So it was a very smooth process. And I have a belief that we will continue that with the rest of the medicines, such as Obagio and natalizumab, which probably shouldn't cause any more problems for us and mainly our patients. What are the key points you'd like to our listeners to remember about the generics and biosimilars in MS treatment?
Yeah, so I think the key takeaway points are that generics and biosimilars, we need to remember that they're just as safe and effective as the original brand. They're therapeutically equivalent, but are significantly lower cost. So ultimately, they provide better value for the NHS. I think for patients, I think if you are considering or are being changed to a generic or biosimilar medicine, I think it's important to try and stay informed. Ask your clinical team any questions you've got, ask for further information, try and stay up to date with these sort of developments. And just keep in mind that these options are just as good, like I said, as the original branded medicine, and they'll manage your MS effectively.
Yeah, and be aware of this nocebo effect, that is your preconception and belief about what's going to happen to you, which is not always true. Because as I gave an example, a few examples about the generics and the biosimilars, about the coffee brands and beans and how it's been made. So I think it should stimulate your thinking a little bit more and give you a better understanding, as well as understanding about the taste of the dish, that you may have preconception, but actually it's crafted nicely by the chef with a precision, and it shouldn't affect your decision-making process starting. But always communicate with your healthcare providers, make the decision together. It's a collaborative work. We need to work in a partnership. That's the best when we achieve the best results, working together. So as we wrap up today's enlightening conversation with Lucy Wessels, our high-cost drug pharmacist, we are reminded of the powerful impact knowledge and understanding can make on navigating MS treatment options. Lucy, thank you so much for shedding light on the importance of generics and biosimilars in shaping the future of MS care.
Thank you.
To our listeners, we hope today's episode has provided you with valuable insights and empowered you to engage in informed decisions about your treatment options. For more information, resources, and to continue the conversation, subscribe to our website, www.bewellwithms.com. Don't forget to share this episode on your social media channels and leave us a comment with your thoughts and questions. Together, let's make this channel even more popular and supportive to the MS community. Until now, thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, you're not alone on this journey.